See?
My
It's like,
cocks.
yeah, it's that one. Testing, testing. Watch.
Fuck me.
Testing, testing. What we had before was audio input capture, which is this.
Oh, fuck me.
See, if we go into settings,
That
here,
is terrible.
we had this. We had this on, which was the Brio. Now, mix audio, mic audio,
Cocks, yeah.
it was, what it was doing, it went to default.
Well, that should have been
It wasn't.
the Yeti.
It wasn't. The default was the Logitech Brio.
Fuck me running. You
So,
asshole
I had to
piece of
click Yeti.
shit. Can you change the audio input capture to Yeti too? Just like you did? No,
Where's
right there, right there. Scroll down. Audio input capture. Can you change that? There we go.
What is audio input
I have
capture?
no idea.
Yeah.
Fuck me. Piece of shit.
So now it's working. And I can even turn the volume. Which one? I can't see which one the volume is.
Yeah.
You can even turn the volume.
It's the game. Oh, it's this one right here.
Okay. I can even turn the volume up a little bit.
Yeah.
Am I going the wrong way? Probably. Oh, that's the wrong way. Testing, testing. Yeah.
Oh, I hate. Ah. Fuck, good fine.
Hey everybody. So today I wanted to do a little bit of just chatting, and I might switch to editing in a little bit, but I wanted to talk about travel and conservation, because those two things are near and dear to my heart. And I think for anybody that's been looking at my photography and been following me on the art channel, and thank you everybody for following me. I do appreciate it. It's been really interesting. I got some comments today on a post I did on Instagram and Facebook, my business Facebook and what have you. And it was a photograph. Actually, let me just pull up the photograph and we'll talk about it. Thanks, computer, working on it. There we go, finally. Where is it? This one. Okay, so it was this photograph. And it brought up a lot of controversy, because people were saying, oh, look at that cow, the cow's emaciated. And so I want to talk a little bit about these kinds of things. When you travel, you're going to see the world as it is. And from a Western perspective, those of you that are listening or here from the West, we tend to look at things and say, oh, that poor cattle, he's emaciated. Well, number one, yes, you can see the cattle's ribs. Number two, it is a type of cattle that is not necessarily as fat as others. Most importantly, though, this is a good way to discuss climate change because they're on a cattle drive. They're in the process of taking the cattle to a place that's got more grazing. And this is part of the problem, part of the issue. Now, we all know that, raising cattle is not the best for the environment, but it's not going to go away. It's not going to stop. People eat meat. And the best way to do it is to try and do it in a climate friendly, as well as you can do a climate friendly way. Well, so yeah, this cow is hungry. It's actually a calf, is hungry. But that's why it's being driven by the cowboys to a grazing area. And part of this is because of climate change. This area would typically, at this time of the year, have much more grazing area. Now, they are towards the end of their trip. They're near the farm that they're going to. But where they came from was drier than normal. So, we can look at this and make comments about, the poor cow, but who's to blame? Well, we're to blame. So, I'm reluctant to sometimes respond to people on Instagram and what have you that make comments like that. Because, I don't want to alienate anybody, but let's face it, who's to blame? Us. So, yeah, that's just my pet peeve. I'm a little PO'd today, just because people like to point fingers. A lot of people like to point fingers and say, oh, that poor cattle, or that poor this, or this. But we all play a part in the fact that cow may be a little skinnier than you would like it to be. So yeah, it's just I'm on a little bit of a rant today about that. It unnerves me when I see people that have an attitude about something, but they're not willing to accept the fact that they're part of the problem. For whatever it's worth, it just is something that is a pet peeve for me. So one of the other things I wanted to look at is looking at travel and conservation and trying to have a balance of having a lower footprint, yet also not giving everything up. All right, now, so my niece is her field is conservation. So she loves to travel as well, but she gets on an airplane very, very infrequently because of the carbon footprint and what have you, and I respect that. I respect people that have that commitment and they don't want to cross the line. Fine. But on the other hand, you can be so one-sided about it that you're not able to open yourself up to experiencing new things. In some ways, okay, and I have to look at it. I want to experience and meet people from all over the world. And I can't do that unless I get on an airplane. So there's the trade-off. And it becomes a thing of what's more important. Is it more important to make sure, airplanes aren't flying? They're going to fly. Me not getting on an airplane isn't going to stop airplanes from flying. That's a moot point. That's not going to happen. There are other things we can do to try to, do better for climate change, do better for wildlife conservation, indigenous culture conservation, that don't involve, just not getting on an airplane because it has a carbon footprint. We can't stop that. It's just not feasible. For me personally, I would rather have people traveling and getting to know other cultures, getting to understand people from around the world, than to remain isolated in their bubbles and just have preconceived notions about people. And I'm going to pull up an article that really, and I did post this on my Facebook this morning. Actually, let me just, I'll get it through my Facebook. Oh, maybe I can't. No, I can't. Okay. So I'm going to go to something that I posted earlier today. And that is this article right here. Yeah, follow link. So this is in an area of Brazil in the Amazon, and I've been researching because I've been to the Amazon. I was just in the Pantanal in Brazil, and I'm going back to the Amazon in the Peruvian side. And it has been something that I've been looking at and researching for some time. I take my photography, I call myself a cultural photographer because I not only do wildlife, and I have a lot of wildlife photography, but I not only do wildlife, I also am very interested in indigenous people and representing indigenous people, showing their culture to the world. These are valuable human beings. There's something incredibly special about people that have maintained their culture. I think it's one of the most beautiful things in the world that, oh, sorry about that. No, Walmart of all things. I think it's one of the most beautiful things in the world that people have different cultures. I don't want to be the same as everybody. I don't want us to be homogenized. We need to have differences. We need to experience each other's culture and respect that. So there are several uncontacted tribes in the Amazon still. These are people that live traditionally, and they either have had very little contact or no contact whatsoever with the outside world. And this particular man, known as the Man of the Hole, and known because he digs holes to trap food, to trap wildlife, and sometimes as shelter. And when I was recently in Brazil, had learned about him and the fact that he's the last man of his tribe. He's the last man standing. And he just died. And it's very sad. It made me very sad today because his tribe was wiped out by cattle ranchers, loggers, oil companies, land grabbers, people looking to grab land in the Amazon and make money. They murdered his entire tribe, his entire family, his entire culture. And he was the last one standing. And he wanted nothing to do with the outside world. Now, and this article does mention that Survival International would occasionally, drop supplies for him, making no contact, but just leaving supplies in the forest that they thought he might need to help him survive, being, by himself. And they don't, as of right now, they don't know how old he was, but for the last, this article says for the last 26 years, he's been living in complete isolation on the Tanaru indigenous land, deep in the Brazilian Amazon. And they found him, and he apparently died of natural causes. They will do an autopsy, but there's an element of sadness for me today because this man now represents a lost culture, an entire culture gone from this planet, and that's a sad thing. You know, we say, you know, what happened to the Mayans? What happened to the Aztecs? What happened to this group of people? Well, stuff like this. This is in real time. This is in our time. An entire culture is now gone because other humans wanted the land and killed them, and one man was left, and he stood his ground, and he became protected, but you know, with no children, that's it. He's the last one. So it's just very sad. I'll play you the video. This was some minor video, the last footage that ever. Sorry about that. The last. I'm gonna mute her. This was the last video that was ever caught of him, and one of the only videos ever caught of him surviving and out. He was, you know, in the process of cutting down some sort of tree, and nobody knows what the reason was, but hang on, I'm just about, there we go.
The last known member of an uncontacted indigenous group in Brazil has died. This is according to Brazilian officials. And this is the last footage taken of the man, only known as the Man in the Hole. Back in 2018, he lived in complete isolation for nearly 30 years in the Amazon rainforest after his tribe was wiped out by outsiders wanting to claim their land. Officials believe he died of natural causes, something forensic experts hope to confirm.
So yeah, I mean that's just
in India.
Sorry, that's just really sad to me. But anyway, that's something I just wanted to touch on. All right, so I'm gonna pull up that photograph, and you can see how people are making comments. That poor emaciated cow. Yeah, okay, but it's really. I mean, if I look at the, several people have, put, sad faces. And yeah, do I feel sad for the cow? Sure. But is it going to eat? Yes. It's been making its way. Do I take ownership of part of the reason for that? Absolutely. We're humankind. We're kind of doing it to ourselves. So what's the solution? I don't know. Other than doing our best to, be responsible, travel responsibly, conserve water, try and leave as small of a footprint as possible. And if you're going to travel, you can travel on your own. I travel to a lot of places on my own. But then if you're going to travel with a company, go with a responsible company. Go with a company that believes in conservation. Don't go with the company. Research who you're traveling with. Don't just go with any company that says, hey, we're gonna show you all the best things, and maybe it's a great company, and maybe the price is good, and whatever it might be. But what is their footprint? I'm going to show you one company I use, and this is, I'm not. It is kind of an endorsement, but they don't pay me. I'm not supported by them. I've just taken a lot of their tours, and I'll show you a couple of different ones. This one is, let me get to it, Natural Habitat Adventures. It is the first company that has a zero footprint, and let's look at that. There we go. Partnership with World Wildlife Foundation Fund. That's one of the reasons I go with them. So when you travel with NatHab and World Wildlife Fund, it's sustainable travel. It's conservation travel. And that to me is very, very important. So if we look at the conservation aspect of it, conservation through exploration. You know, we don't have to have complete hands off to still be in conservation mode. Many, many years ago, and I'm just going to back up for a little second. Many, many years ago, I worked for a company called Campus Travel. And it's no longer around. It was cannibalized. Their education arm still exists, CIEE, which is study abroad. But they were founded just after World War II. And the name of the place was, Council Travel. Did I say Campus Travel? I think I did. Council Travel. CIEE is the Council on International Exchange something. I don't know. But Council Travel was founded just after World War II. And their idea was, if people traveled and met other cultures in their natural surroundings and got to know the world that we live in, the people, the flora and fauna, all these different aspects, that we'd hopefully be less likely to destroy it as humans. Now, lofty ideal. To some degree, it has absolutely worked, but I think it's been late in blooming, shall we say. But from a young age, when I started traveling at 18, and then I started working for this particular company, I think in my 20s, my early 20s, that's always been a focus of mine. And I really, really, it struck me. It stuck in my head so much that conservation and making sure that we have air to breathe while experiencing other cultures and getting to know people that are different than us. We get to see that there are differences and there are similarities. We're all human beings sharing this globe. So I like, back to this, I like this company because it has that same, the same ethics that I do, the same beliefs that I do. And it says here, they admit, they expend tons of CO2 because there are more than 8,000 travelers annually on 100 plus adventures on all 7 continents. So yeah, there is a lot of CO2 going into the atmosphere. But there are some things you can do to benefit. Now, I'm not a believer in carbon offsets. I don't believe in it. Because I don't think you can ease your mind or do good in place of the bad you're doing. So I don't like to call them carbon offsets. I like to think of it as, well, I'm not exactly doing the best thing for the planet here, but that doesn't mean I have to throw in the towel. I acknowledge what I'm doing is, I'm doing it for maybe the right reasons, but it is still causing a problem. But I am going to do my best over here in this area. But I'm not offsetting the bad that I'm doing. I'm not absolving myself from the negative. I'm recognizing that there is a negative aspect, but also recognizing that there are other things I can do that are positive. So, this particular company, it is carbon neutral, which that is part of it. But they bring economic resources to local communities. They inspire them to protect. They support them with their, put their money where their mouth is. They don't just talk to the local communities. They support them. They help them. They help them find alternate ways of living that help to preserve and conserve wildlife and preserve the planet around them. They're very big on helping, local communities learn about ecotourism. Ecotourism brings more money into the community while allowing the wildlife to flourish, not be hunted, and it ends up being better for everybody all around. So, yes, I mean this type of company, they do a lot of really good things. Again, they admit that we're putting CO2 into the atmosphere. But we do that when we breathe. We can't get away from that guilt. Okay, we do it as human beings. We're doing it. We're trying to reduce it. We're doing I don't think we're doing our best. We're doing a decent job of trying to reduce it, but we're not there yet. So it's been around since 1985, and here are some of the things they do. Carbon neutral, their carbon neutral travel does offset all CO2 output. Again, I'm not a big believer in offsets. I think of it in a different way, but that being what it says. And actually, let me just go on to that now. It's the world's first 100% carbon neutral travel company. Okay, so what do? They do things like sustainability, offsetting greenhouse gas emissions via third-party verified projects out around the world. So they're not absolving themselves of any guilt. They are putting their money into what I call not offsetting, but they put their money into solutions, looking for solutions, partnering with the South Pole to try and reduce carbon impacts by offsetting greenhouse gas emissions with various projects around the world. So yeah, they're trying to put money into research to improve rather than just spending money and absolving themselves of guilt. So I do like that. They fund carbon reduction projects specifically. What I'm doing puts carbon into the air, so I'm going to fund something that helps to reduce that, to find the science to reduce that. Excuse me. So they're very big on, calculating the carbon emissions, and then find these carbon reduction projects to balance in an equal amount. And again, that sounds like carbon offsets. But carbon offsets are a little bit different. They're calling it that, but they're doing it in a much more organic way. A lot of companies will say, excuse me, a lot of companies will say, like the airlines, for example, will say, oh, we're doing carbon offsets. And all that means is they're throwing a little profit at a project that might do something else for the planet. Whereas this particular company recognizes the amount of carbon that goes in sorry, not COVID, that goes into the atmosphere, and because of trips, and they help to fund projects that will create the science to reduce that. So they're not just sitting around and sending people all over the world. That's my point there. All right. The other thing they do that I really like is reducing waste. You don't leave anything behind. You don't take anything. You don't leave anything. And they use no disposable plastic. In fact, and I do have one here. I've talked about this on my other channel. They give the travelers these thermoses that you get to keep, you get to take it home. I mean, they're magic. It's sorcery. Sitting in 100-degree heat, you can put some ice in here, put some cold water, carry it around with you, hiking or on a boat or whatever. 100-degree heat, 60% humidity, 70% humidity, and the next day there's still ice in it. So, sorcery. But they don't use plastic. They don't use, if they have something that's plastic, it's a reusable plastic. It is not a throwaway, but disposable plastic. But they try not to use any plastic at all. So zero waste adventures, even in the office operations. So that's really good. There's not a ton of waste. That's very big. Large cruise lines, which is one of the reasons I don't take large cruises, is because of the waste. Well, first of all, the giant petri dishes, but second of all, the discharge of waste that goes into the ocean. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And this waste, this plastic that's washing up everywhere. I mean, there are islands of plastic in our oceans. So that's a big thing. NatHab, it says here, it's a relatively small contributor industry-wide, but can't just ignore the problem. You have to be part of the solution. So I really, really like that. Plastic-free travel. There's nothing. There's nothing. The reusable insulated mugs, they don't use plastic straws. A supporter of Travelers Against Plastic. And yeah, it's just really, that's one of the things I really, really love about the company. They don't, they have containers of water to refill your containers, but they don't give out bottled water in plastic, containers. It's something they just don't do. So really, really like that. One of the other things they do, green office community. So these are the employees up in Colorado. They promote e-bikes, green energy, recycling, use of recycled materials, and lots of eco-volunteering. So that is also something where they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk, which is very important. And then, of course, partnering with World Wildlife Fund. I think partnering with World Wildlife Fund is a huge, huge positive. It's an incredibly important thing that the World Wildlife Fund does, is to make sure that animals don't go extinct. They belong on this planet just as much as we do, and we need to keep them safe. It's just you'd think it's common sense, and yet it's not. A lot of cultures, a lot of people in countries, let's talk about Brazil, for example. The farmers the cattle ranchers they used to shoot the jaguars because the jaguars would attack their cattle, kill their cattle for food. Well, part of the things that Natural Habitat NatHab does, when we were in the Pantanal, we stayed at an ecotourist lodge. It's a gentleman who, his family has owned that land since the British left Brazil. They purchased it from the British, and 1 million acres. And a lot of cattle ranchers, a lot of cattle ranching, but one of the owners, this is all the children now that own it, the next generation, one of the owners has set aside his area purely for conservation. And there are still cattle ranchers in the area on his property, and if a cow gets killed by a jaguar, instead of the people that own the cow going and taking revenge on a jaguar, he pledges to pay them for that cow that was killed. So they know that if a jaguar should kill cattle, they're going to get paid for that. So they don't need to worry. They don't need to go and hunt the jaguars. And because of that, the jaguar population in that area has grown exponentially. It is, I can't remember exactly how many they said. There might have been about 250. I'm not sure if it was that area that had 250. But the jaguar population altogether is growing, and it's growing in a very, very healthy way. Hola, Aimsie's Law. Thanks for joining. So it's growing in a very, very healthy way, and that actually is one of the best things, that the wildlife continues to thrive. Jaguars, for example, used to, their natural territory was as far north as southern Arizona, southern Texas, southern California. Jaguars used to come that far north. And over the last year or two, I think during the pandemic, a jaguar was actually seen in Texas. I just briefly heard it. I don't know a lot about it, but I did hear that it happened. And it's kind of cool. We shouldn't be afraid. Oh, a jaguar. I don't want it. A jaguar. Well, you know what? Get over it. Let's get over ourselves. They were here first. And we live in their world as humans. So, one thing I will say about the jaguars, they're not going to attack you. They're not interested in attacking you, unlike some others, like mountain lions. But a jaguar really, and even mountain lions, unless you come in between a mother and a cub, they're not interested in you. Or they, for as far as a mountain lion goes, it has to be extremely hungry also to do that. So jaguars tend not to. They're more afraid of you than you are of them. So yeah, we want wildlife to not go extinct. I have stepchildren. I don't want to tell my stepchildren in another 10 to 15 years, there used to be this really cool animal, and here's a photograph of it. I don't want that. So that's why it's very, very important to me. Let's see. Their philanthropy, they support local grassroots efforts. So Bike Town Africa, providing transportation for rural healthcare workers in sub-Saharan Africa. The Bwindi School Farming Project in Uganda. I remember this one. The Fort White Alive in Winnipeg, sponsoring 10 classrooms from core area schools for environmental education. The Great Bear Rainforest Conservation, home to grizzly bears and other wildlife. In Uganda, a Child Development Center, another one in reducing poverty in Madagascar. Language barriers, with regards to human bear conflicts. all sorts of things. Oh, here's the Colorado students learning about pervasive plastics and the direct connection between their local river and oceans. So educating the next generation, educating the current generation about, what you should and shouldn't be doing. The Jaguar program on safari, I got to meet the director of that. She came and spoke to us, and they are the ones that are, really trying to bring back the jaguar population and seeing the effect that it has on, the loss of the jaguar population, and then the increase now of the jaguar population, and how it's bringing a lot more benefit than anyone can even imagine. So making sure wildlife thrives is a benefit to not only us as a global population, but to local communities in a way that they didn't even necessarily think about. Then there's the orangutan adoption, the Orangutan Outreach Fire Fund, because there's, a lot of fires in Borneo, unfortunately, that happens. And so they've helped to, gain firefighting equipment and reforestation instead of deforestation. Here's a primary school in Tanzania. Ethiopia's Simeon Mountains, helping pay monthly wages for local workers who live in remote villages. That helps them sustain themselves, helping to pay their salaries, helping them to understand that they're not alone, that, them, letting the wildlife live and helping the wildlife to thrive, that is going to be better for their livelihood as well. And in the meantime, they're paying the wages for the local workers. So there's a lot of different things that that this company does. Here's one, the Buwindi School. They've done some incredible things. Cheetah Conservation Fund, which actually I adopted a cheetah many years ago, and one of them. It was in South Africa. Charles Darwin, the Churchill Anglican Church restoration. The church is already restored up on Hudson Bay, but it's a landmark. So a lot of different things that they really help people do. Women's co-op, and that's been part of my traveling experience and part of the things that I've done. When I was in Tanzania, and I was there on my own many years ago, probably about 15 years ago now, I'm guessing, I was fortunate to, and actually, let me pull up a photograph so you can see what I'm talking about. Maybe it's not in here. We'll go in here. There we go. Tanzania. I don't have one there. I thought no. Of course I have one. Yeah, here we go. Here's one. So you can see that they're in a farm setting. And these are the Maasai women, and the Maasai women are traditionally, they're warriors. The Maasai tribe. They're hunter warriors, hunter gatherers, and the Maasai women typically took care of the home and the children and the cattle or goats, while the men would go out and hunt. So a neighboring tribe, and it happened to be the gentleman who was showing me around the Maasai Mara, he actually was from a tribe where they were farmers. That was their primary resource. So he had an idea on his own to ask the husbands, out of respect, if it would be okay if he taught the wives how to farm. They said, sure, why not? So they did, and I got a chance to go to their farm, which is not something on any tourist trail. Got a chance to go to their farm, meet these women, and they each stood by their crops. It was really, really, really moving. And just the heads of lettuce were like this. I mean, the carrots were huge. The soil is so fertile, and the women have done such an amazing job. And they've not only now are providing vegetables to their own tribe, their own people, but they're also providing these vegetables to local resorts. So it's win-win. The local resorts are getting the fresh produce locally, and access to fresh produce. The tribes are making money from this fresh produce, and they've learned a new skill, and they're providing healthy additions to their diet by farming vegetables. So it's just a complete win-win for everybody. It's a 360 win. So it's things like that that are really, really important to me, and why I actually became a cultural photographer, because it was important to me to see these stories and see what people are doing around the world. Now they wanted to, give me some of the vegetables, and unfortunately I was getting on an airplane in 2 days, so I couldn't. But I bought some of their jewelry instead, and supported them that way. So that was kind of fun for me. But just absolutely lovely group of women, and just empowered and very proud of what they had accomplished. Just because one tribe decided to help another tribe become self-sustainable. So it can be done. It can be done, and and we can see it while we're traveling. That is kind of the cool thing. It's a lot of different projects they've been a part of. Look at that face. Look at that lemur face. Lots of different stuff here. So they really, really put their money where their mouth is. And because of that, I like traveling with them. And then the NatHab Community Relief Fund, where they actually give a lot of money. Part of every trip, they give the money to people to help provide food and medical to communities all over the world. Here's one. The Galapagos Island, $44,500 was distributed to more than 40 unemployed ship crew, local guides, and other staff during COVID that couldn't work. So benefited more than 120 people and kept them going. So they really, really do put their money where their mouth is. And you got to remember, during COVID, they weren't running any trips either. But they still gave money, still helped people, because they knew it would come back, and they knew that these people needed to survive. So I really, really like that about this company. It's not just conservation, it's not just climate change, but it's also putting their money where their mouth is for local people, the local people that are there. Let's see, here's another one that they did during the pandemic. 4,000 went to the Cayman Ecological Refuge, which is where I was staying, including $500 for the local guide and $350 for each of the 10 launch staff to support their families. And I know if you're in the West, you're going to say, oh, $350, really? That's a lot of money. And that amount of money goes a long way there. So it's not pennies. It goes a long way there. And then an additional $6,000 to local guides and their families to survive. So yeah, same thing in Peru. 5 staff and 2 drivers, 8,000. All of the different places they operate. They during the pandemic, they supported people. They supported local people, the local guides and the local people, the local habitats. The not hotels. They're not really hotels, but they're and they're not resorts, but they're eco lodges. That's the word I'm looking for. They put their money where their mouth was, and so yeah, I really do like traveling with these people. Now there are other companies too. There are lots of other companies. I like this one in particular, but there are lots of other companies, and let's look at some of them. Eco-tourist companies. Here we go. This is July 21st. Let's just look at the first one. Pebble Magazine, top 12 eco-friendly travel companies. Yeah, okay, whatever. All right. So, responsible travel. Well, that's in the name, right? Yeah, the clue is in the name. They lead the way in eco-friendly holidays and ecotourism since 2001. Positive change with NGOs. They don't do any elephant riding or exploitative. Same thing with NatHab. They don't do anything that exploits local culture or wildlife. And then you've got And Beyond. And Beyond. That's actually how I ended up going to Tanzania. When I went with the to see the Maasai Mara women, the Maasai tribe women. I was actually there. So, and it used to be called something else. I can't remember. I went just as the name was changing was when I was there. So, another really great company. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they specialize in Africa. Let's just take a look. Yeah. Oh, they do some other things too. Interesting. Didn't know that. I really like this company as well. I think they do a great job. Very, very eco-friendly. They started out primarily in Africa, but apparently they do other locations now as well. There's still cold water in here. This has been sitting in my office for 4 days, and the water is still ice cold. Sorcery, I'm telling you. Complete sorcery. Let's see. Kinder. I've not heard of this one. That looks like it's more the U.S. and Europe. That could be why. Eco Companion. It's a travel company and booking platform, so it kind of pulls everything together for you that you can chop and change into personal itineraries. Fun. Undiscovered mountains. That's not me. I don't do that. They're pretty to look at, but I don't want to ski anymore. Too many knee injuries. Alternative adventure. Intrepid travel. They've been around a long time. Kind traveler. Interesting. Don't know anything about that one. Arikari. I've heard of this one before. It's South American mostly. Kind of boutique eco trips. Rickshaw travel. Not heard of it. Used to be just Asian tours into Japan, but now they're expanding into other parts of Asia. Byway. This is a flight-free holiday. Okay. Earth Changers. Some of these I have not heard of. Steps. I think I have heard of them before. Let's see. And some of them are based out of different country. Now this looks like it's possibly a European-based article and magazine because they don't mention any of the American companies or actually North American companies like G Adventures out of Canada. They don't mention Abercrombie and Kent. They don't mention NatHab. So there are lots more. These are just 12 that this place has. This particular company has looked at. Which one is this? Oh, that's and beyond. Okay, so let's see what else there is. Or Tour Radar. This is a really good one. Tour Radar has some really good lists and where they go. Let's see, where's their list? Where's their list? Global. Okay, here's G Adventures on here. It's world known. It's out of Canada. This one looks Canadian based, this Tour Radar, but Tour Radar. Let's see, Ecotourism. Let's do by continent. Yeah, they list quite a few here too. Yeah, it does seem to be a little bit leaning toward Canadian companies, but that's okay. Let's see, timeout.com, always a trusted magazine. There's our Gondwana Eco Tours. Okay, they're based in New Orleans. They do gorilla trekking. Let's see, Seacology, Discover Corps, volunteer vacations. These are getting really popular as well. Row Adventures, if you want to. Oh, that's up here in the Pacific Northwest. Oh, it's in other places too. NatHab, there you go. There's NatHab. Cheeseman's Okay, Cheeseman's Ecological Safaris. Let's see here, what else? Quark. Yeah, Quark is really good. I almost went with Quark to Antarctica, but I'm actually going with a different company. Lindblad, which is also part of Nat Geo. And Nat Geo Expeditions. The Earthwatch Institute. So yeah, there are a lot of companies out there doing it. You're not, and I'm not advocating necessarily one over another. I mean, I'm partial to NatHab, Natural Habitat or NatHab, just because I've had several really good experiences with them. But there are lots of companies out there. I'm going to Borneo with a different company, most likely, primarily because NatHab is geared toward wildlife, and I love wildlife, and that's important. But I also want the cultural aspect. So the trip to Borneo, I've chosen something that's more Nat Geo, that encompasses both. And there are times when I travel myself, and I try and do things in a as earth-friendly way as possible. I still always, even when traveling myself, take my reusable water bottle. I don't use plastic bottles. I don't buy things in plastic bottles when I'm traveling. That is something that I've learned not to do. All right, so I am going to switch gears, and I'm going to do a little photo editing. I'm going to switch over to the art channel, but thanks for listening. I hope you got something out of this, and I'll be back on in a few minutes on the art channel. See you soon.